Alright. Looks like we got everything set. Let's do the thing. Today we're creating a new character. Because why the F not, right? I don't think I want to play a rogue. I think I want to play a mage. Now, normally, if I played a mage, I'd play a spellblade, right? Because I'm super obsessed with whacking things. But, let's play like a real mage. So mages get Lightning Blast, hurl a bolt of lightning at the target it chains to an additional enemy for each time it has been directly cast in the last 4 seconds, up to 2 times. Elemental Nova, cast a Nova around you that deals fire, cold, and lightning damage. All types of Elemental Nova that you have enabled have an equal chance to be cast. Flame Ward grants a burst of 400 ward, then for 3 seconds hits deal 30% less damage to you and cause a retaliatory burst of flames. Creates 3 successively larger ice explosions in the target direction. Each explosion deals more damage than the last. Disintegrate channel to create a beam of pure energy in the target direction. The beam deals fire and lightning damage to all enemies caught in it. And casts a fiery orb that spews burning shrapnel in all directions. Ooh. I'm kind of thinking either disintegrate or volcanic orb. Let's take a look here. Meteor. My older brother's actually playing this right now. He did a huge, level boost build to it, and then just started dropping meteors that are just massive on things. Apparently it worked really good. Cast an orb in the target direction that deals lightning damage and pulls enemies in. Pulls enemy that it hits towards it as it travels in the target location. It explodes, dealing lightning damage to enemies surrounding it, and also striking up to 5 enemies further out. The further it travels, the higher the damage in the area of effect. The explosions, that's interesting. Ice Barrage opens a rift that repeatedly shoots a barrage of ice shards in the target direction for 5 seconds. Toggle to prevent movement and drain 25 mana each second. Mana drained increases by 1 mana per second. All spells cost plus 5 mana to cast. 1% increased spell damage, a 50% increased cast speed. Also deals lightning damage over time to surrounding enemies. Black Hole, summon a powerful black hole at targeted location that aggressively pulls enemies and deals cold damage over time to enemies within its reach. And then let's look at the Rune Master. Oh, the Rune Master is way too complicated for me. So I think we might go something really basic. I'm a big fan of using the base skills. So, oops. Survival Hermit Mage. So let's just get in here and just see what happens. We're going to be on normal. We don't care about hardcore. We don't care about any of that other stuff.
In the beginning, there was darkness. Only the terror, myself, and the void.
Yeah. Let's get down with our bad selves. So we get Lightning Strike right away. We're just going to put that on our right click. Honestly, I kind of want to just use the base skill, right? Just see how powerful I can make this. It seems to be stunning really well, so this seems to be a thing that I've noticed a lot with some of the early game spells just in general. They seem to have pretty decent stun capability. So maybe that's something I should be looking into. Ooh, fireball. There's another interesting one. I definitely think I want to do lightning damage. I really like the idea of a lightning mage. There are at least a couple of good lightning skills. I honestly think I'll probably be using Disintegrate. If for no other reason than I'm a big fan of channeled skills.
When you arrived, they were like, "What are you good? Come, let me watch you fight."
So we'll probably try to do some channeling. And do some big tanking stuff. This is interesting. Intelligence 1, fire resist, lightning resist. But here's a nice increased fire damage, increased lightning damage, increased cold damage. I like that. I definitely want to go some sort of elemental path. Maybe I'll try to do lots of different things. Let's take a look at the skills. When am I going to get Disintegrate? Level 10. Okay, so I can start using it pretty quick. There are also a lot of skills in here that just weren't on that other. So we've got Fireball, we got Snap Freeze, freezes enemy in a cone in front of you. Let's take a look at what this here can do. Let's read some things. Let's get into this a little bit. Lightning Blast chains an additional time for each lightning blast you have directly cast recently up to a maximum. So maximum additional chains 1, additional chains per recent cast 1. Lightning Blast chains have increased range. Lightning Blast can now chain to your allies, granting increased damage and critical strike chance for 4 seconds. This buff cannot stack. Lightning Blast has increased cast speed. Lightning Blast hits have a chance to blind enemies. Lightning Blast chances against Lightning Blast has a chance to cast Spark Nova around the first enemy hit. Spark Nova deals spell lightning damage to all enemies in a small area. So that's interesting. So that's specifically Spark Nova, so it's not even going to be taking the chance of the Nova itself. That's really interesting. Lightning Blast hits deal more damage to shield or shocked enemies, multiplicative with other modifiers. Lightning Blast hits have a chance to shock enemies. Lightning Blast now has a chance to freeze, and its base lightning damage is converted to cold. Consequently, this damage scales with increased cold damage, but not increases to lightning damage. Lightning Blast has a higher chance to freeze enemies. Lightning Blast now deals damage to all enemies in a line, but no longer chains or forks. Lightning Blast hits deal more damage for each time it would have chained up to your maximum. Lightning Blast hits grant you ward. Ooh, I like that. Lightning Blast is now a powerful channeled attack, hitting enemies caught within it. It costs more mana per second to channel and provides less ward when you hit enemies. You do not generate mana while channeling. This is incompatible with the Focal Blast node. If you have taken both, this will not work. What is the Focal Blast node? That one. Lightning Blast cannot double cast and only chains every 5th cast if it is channeled. Lightning Blast hits grant half as much ward. Reduce Lightning Blast channel cost if Lightning Blast cannot chain. Casting Lightning Blast grants you ward per mana spent. This only counts the upfront mana cost, not the channeling cost if Lightning Blast is channeled. Improves Lightning Blast base critical strike. When you cast Lightning Blast, you have a chance to be granted Lightning Aegis, which grants 50% increased lightning damage and 25% less damage taken. Lightning Aegis causes an explosion of lightning damage when you lose 25% of your health, or after 10 seconds. Lightning Blast can chain additional times, but costs more mana. Lightning Blast chains only to the first target hit. Lightning Blast chains now hit the same target after a delay, but no longer chains to additional enemies. Lightning Blast chains half as many times rounded up. So this is interesting to me, because this I think would go really well with creating this halo. So, because this would be really good for attacking specifically bigger enemies, and then just allowing it to sort of re-hit that enemy over and over again. How long does it take? Lightning Blast hits have added lightning damage, and lightning damage blast chains can fork. Okay. Here we've got Lightning Blast has a chance to double cast, and Lightning Blast critical strikes deal more damage. Lightning Blast cannot double cast if it is channeled or cast by another skill. When double casting, Lightning Blast instead has a chance to quadruple cast. Wow. Lightning Blast deals more damage. While out of mana, Lightning Blast has no cost but cannot chain. Lightning Blast hits have a chance to apply a Spark Charge. Spark Charge on hit 10%. If Lightning Blast hits an enemy already affected by Spark Charge, the Spark Charge explodes, dealing lightning damage to all nearby enemies. Spark Charges applied by Lightning Blast deal more damage multiplicative with other multipliers. So there's something really interesting in here, I think. Taking this convergence node, just hitting the same enemy, and then having this and this, I think could go a long way. So I think a really high crit, would be really good. I also kind of like this blind chance. Lightning Blast hits deal more damage to chilled or shocked enemies, multiplicative with other modifiers. That's a good one. Yeah, there's something definitely interesting in there. So I definitely want to look at Lightning Blast. And I definitely want to take Elemental Nova to go with it. And just be looking at Lightning Nova. Elemental Nova hits have a chance to attach a Spark Charge. Ooh. With each, which deals lightning damage to nearby enemies after 1 second when the enemy dies. So we're getting that Spark Charge thing going on again. Which means, let's go back, actually, to this one. Lightning Blast hits have a chance to apply a Spark Charge. If Lightning Blast hits an enemy already affected by Spark Charge, the Spark Charge explodes, dealing lightning damage to all nearby enemies. So that's interesting, because being able to apply the Spark Charges, so taking this away and actually allowing the skill to chain when in conjunction with this Nova effect could cause a ton of Spark Charges to just be popping off all the time. Elemental Nova has a chance to be overcharged. Overcharged Novas shock enemies and have a larger area. Overcharged Elemental Novas deal more damage multiplicative with other modifiers and have increased stun chance. Elemental Nova kills grant wards. So there's something interesting in here. Using lightning burst will trigger lightning nova. So I can take nodes from other places like this one without potentially casting ice nova. So anything that just says elemental nova do certain things. Elemental nova hits have a chance to gain ward. 7%. Yeah, this is super interesting. So 20 ward gained per point with a 7% chance. So we can get up to a 35% chance to gain up to 100 ward per hit with elemental nova. But it would always be lightning nova. Protective strike and survival of the victor nodes on this tree grant more ward. You have more ward retention for 4 seconds after killing an enemy. Elemental nova has a larger area of effect. Elemental nova hits have an increased critical strike chance. Elemental nova becomes a channeled ability, unleashing 5 novas per second and rapidly draining your mana. Elemental nova has a smaller area of effect. If you have not taken the fire nova or ice nova nodes, then this node re-enables basic elemental nova. Oh, okay. So if you only go down the lightning path, that's interesting. I wonder if you can trigger this with the autocast. Elemental nova costs less mana per second to channel. That's kind of interesting. We're not looking at mana strike. We probably will want to take mana or flame ward. I don't like frost claw. Static. I don't really like that idea either. And I'm pretty interested in disintegrate. If we use disintegrate, we'll obviously be not using lightning strike. But okay, so what does this do? Channel to create a beam of pure energy in the target direction. The beam deals fire and lightning damage to all enemies caught in it. You take less damage while channeling disintegrate multiplicative. Wow. 8 times 4 is what, 32? So 32% less damage taken? That's crazy. You gain ward each second based on your intelligence while channeling disintegrate. Ward gained 3 intelligence per... Ward gained per 3 int per second. Plus 1 point. So for every 3 int you have, you gain 1 ward per point. So you can ultimately get to 1 ward per intelligence. Your skills recover their cooldowns faster while you're channeling disintegrate. That's interesting. Disintegrate deals more damage. Disintegrate now has 2 beams, and each beam deals independently. So enemies caught both take double damage. Nice. Disintegrate costs more mana per second to channel. Each beam deals less damage. So they only deal 140% damage to have 2 of them. The channel cost is plus 14, which isn't crazy. I can definitely see that being fun. Disintegrate deals significantly more damage multiplicative with other modifiers, but has a delay before casting. This delay is reduced by casting speed. I don't really like that. But plus 50% more damage is... Oh, and it's only a 0.5 second. Actually, that is worth. Every 3 seconds of channeling disintegrate, you cast static orb or volcanic orb, chosen randomly. If disintegrate is converted to fire, you always cast volcanic. If disintegrate is converted to lightning, you always cast static. This consumes mana equal to the mana cost of these respective abilities. Ooh, I really like auto casting, like a lot. Flame burst. Flame energy builds up on enemies within the beam, causing an explosion that deals fire damage around them. Flame energy builds up more quickly. Flame vent. When you stop channeling disintegrate, you cast fireball at nearby enemies. Twice per second spent channeling, up to a maximum. So you can get up to 6 fireballs cast. That's interesting. Disintegrate gains a portion of your chance to ignite with fire spells on hit as ignite chance per second. I don't think igniting with disintegrate is probably going to be something that's all that useful. Disintegrate's base lightning damage is converted to fire damage unless you have the electrify node. Disintegrate loses the lightning tag. Where's the electrify node? You have a chance each second to cast Fire Aura. That's pretty good. Disintegrate deals more fire damage, multiplicative with other modifiers based on your intelligence. So int stacking with Disintegrate is definitely going to be huge. Bonus range, huge. Tier 2 Disintegrate, also huge. Disintegrate is upgraded to Tier 3 after 4 seconds. Tier 3 grants double the bonus of Tier 2. Oh, that's kind of crazy. While you disintegrate is at Tier 3, you have a chance to inflict spreading flames and spark charges on enemies in the beam each second while channeling. If disintegrate is converted to fire or spark, the spark part is spark charges are converted to spreading flames. Disintegrated is converted to lightning. The spreading flames is converted to spark charges. Interesting. For every 2 seconds you spend channeling disintegrate, you can stack of Leucomancer up to 2 stacks. Each stack lasts 4 seconds. Stacks are refreshed when you gain a new one. Leucomancer grants global more damage to ignited or shocked enemies, multiplicative with other modifiers, and global reduced mana cost. Hey, that's really good. If you're channeling Disintegrate while having at least 1 stack of Leucomancer, it starts at Tier 2. If you have the Amplification node and at least 2 stacks of Leucomancer, Disintegrate starts at Tier 3 instead. That's definitely useful versus bosses. Intensify, Disintegrate upgrades to the next tier faster. This also affects the rate at which you gain stacks of Leucomancer. Disintegrate deals more damage while at tier 2, but also causes you to take more damage while at tier 2. Both multiplicative with other modifiers and each other. Those effects are doubled at tier 3. That's interesting. Disintegrate has a chance to shock enemies. You have a chance each second to cast Lightning Blast at nearby enemies. This consumes mana equal to Lightning Blast's mana cost. So the reason this is interesting is Lightning Blast can consume static charges to deal damage. So it doesn't seem like Disintegrate does anything to the spark charges. Spark charges are spells that explode after 0.7 seconds, dealing lightning damage in an area around the target. This damage does not scale with modifiers to the hit that applied the charge. So, as you trigger those spark charges, if you're triggering is this every second? You have a chance each second, to cast Lightning Blast. That's interesting. I don't know how valuable that would be. 1 second, 1 cast per second isn't necessarily huge, but maybe. Disintegrate's base fire damage is converted to lightning. Consequently, this damage scales with increase to lightning damage, but not increases to fire damage. So let's look. Because it says its base fire damage is converted to lightning. So it just does all of its damage as lightning instead of fire. Shock inflicted by Disintegrate lasts longer, and Disintegrate deals more direct damage per stack of shock. You gain static charges each second while channeling Disintegrate. Disintegrate no longer costs mana while channeling, but it also deals less damage. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. Disintegrate deals more lightning damage based on your maximum mana. Per 8 maximum mana, you gain plus 1% lightning damage. So you'd need to get 4 times 8, you need to get 320. That seems definitely doable, though. Okay, so I think going Disintegrate, Lightning Blast, Lightning Nova is probably going to be pretty interesting. And maybe actually Lightning Orb. Right, isn't that... Nope, wrong one. Static Orb, here we go. Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some interesting stuff in there. So we're just going to... So one of the things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to keep an eye out for a few things. That frozen, the snap freeze, seems like a pretty good defensive ability. There may be something to using that. Alright, we can specialize a skill now. We're going to start with Lightning Strike. We're not going to be gaining these additional chains because we're not going to be direct casting this once we hit Disintegrate. Okay, double and quadruple cast are out of the question. We've got this spark charge triggering stuff, which is interesting. Does Disintegrate? Okay, so Disintegrate is very anti-crit. It seems like it's just going to be doing a flat amount of damage. And so I don't know if adding crit to Disintegrate will have any value. And if that's the case, then having crit on Lightning Blast might also not have terribly much value. When you cast Lightning Blast, you have a chance to be granted Lightning Aegis. We're going to want to take this. We don't want... So we're just looking to do more lightning damage. Lightning Blast hits grant you ward. That's an interesting... Cast speed doesn't matter. Blind Chance and Shock Nova. Lightning Blast is channeled. Don't care about that. Ooh, casting Lightning Blast grants you ward per mana spent. This is interesting. So I kind of like this ward thing. I kind of like coming up this way. And then I like these damage things. Right, this is all about doing some more damage. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to come down here. We're going to take Shock Chance. And we're probably going to take this Intelligence. A big part of this is going to be just stacking as much intelligence as is humanly possible. Yeah, I've been awake for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours now, Gravy. We're kind of getting back into a normal schedule instead of whatever weird shit was going on for the last couple of weeks.
Sounds like they're leaders. The keepers of a group. Even then, it's these now. Speaking of, I must head there now. Feel free to look around.
Oh, I haven't. Hang on. Let's look at the global variables here. Oh, okay, they do have 200 points. Oh, that's right. Y'all actually have the nasty knife now, too. So your base damage is 20 now? 30 now? Something? 30 for some reason?
Was just telling me of your battle. One of
Strong attack does 2.5 times the damage of your base attack damage. And then base attack does 1 times. And then attack up increases your base attack by +10. I started getting things ported over to Godot. I finally figured out how to use the webhooks. So we're going to get the project made in Godot. And so we're just going to be using streamer.bot to sort of parse the information from our chat. And then we'll be using Godot to actually run the game logic, which will be nice. Mana strike. Some more of that. Some more of that. This is definitely a fairly weak way to start this game with this electric strike. Just doesn't do a ton of damage. It's not a super valuable high-end skill, but whatevs. It's working good enough, I think. Adept Robes of Embers. What do we got? Increased elemental damage, yes please. Plus intelligence, yes please. All those good things. Nice. Was your stream working yesterday, like morning, evening? I didn't stream yesterday. Oh, Steam, not stream. I also didn't really play video games yesterday. I did see that people were talking about the new Silk Song and all the people downloading it crashing stream. Or Steam. But, I did not play video games really at all yesterday, so I didn't notice. Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. Considering, I mean, there have been some wildly popular games that have released on Steam. So it would be weird to me if Silksong specifically caused Steam to crash. I assume that it was coincidental, but maybe not. Oh shit, what did I get? I don't need this poignard. Dodge rating, dex, movement speed. Doesn't really seem useful. Was Silksong indeed it happened right when the timer for release hit 0? Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what happened. It seems weird to me. I mean, there's no way that they had even 1 million people trying to download the game, right? That seems strange to me. Considering we've had multiple games sell more than 1 million copies in the first, or have 1 million concurrent players on the first day. Yeah, it's not going to because I broke that functionality as I was changing things around. But it did work. He did take damage. I just haven't added a UI element because I'm porting over to Godot. And so adding UI elements to the OBS version doesn't really make any sense. Because then I'd just be duplicating work. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to definitely make the UI easier to deal with. By a lot, actually. Trying to make a UI on OBS can all the way kiss my ass. And it's going to make the animations and stuff a lot easier to deal with because we'll be able to put the animations into the Godot project and then not have to worry about like calling up certain files and stuff like that to load them into OBS and all that other bullshit. Ooh, was that +5 intelligence? Yes, thank you. All right. Yeah, we getting crazy.
You're here to help protect the Drake. Tread carefully.
Yeah, I figured you meant now instead of not. I figured.
Not here. It isn't safe. That should hold them. That's what we did. Well, tell you what. Let's get out of here first, and then I'll explain more. These peace talks are hardly worth it if you don't know why Orion is after us.
This is the mage. I am not going to play the rune master. I think I'm probably going to play the sorcerer. Or maybe the spell blade for some of the defensive perks that they get. But yeah, we are going to play a mage. I just have been enjoying making new characters in this game. So, I mean, I play them for 2 or 3 days, and then I kind of get a little bored. So I switch to a new character, do something else. No, I have not played the Primalist yet. I mean, there's a lot of different skills to use in this game. We can make a lot of different characters. But I think we're going to play the Disintegrate skill and then channel that, doing just lightning damage. And then we're going to auto cast through Disintegrate this lightning strike that I'm using right now. And then also lightning nova. And probably static orb. So we're just going to go do a shit ton of lightning damage. Should be fun. Alright, we got 2 unspent ward or points. When you drop below 70% health, you gain a burst of ward based on your maximum health. Every 3 seconds, your next elemental spell deals increased damage and has a chance to slow enemies on hit. Bonus intelligence, bonus health and mana. When you hit an enemy with a lightning skill, you cast arcane lightning at additional enemies dealing lightning damage. This effect has a 5-second cooldown. Increased attack and cast speed. Increased cooldown recovery speed. You hit an enemy with a fire skill. You ignite additional nearby enemies. Let's just take some intelligence. Made a small animation in Blender, rendering it out now. Then gonna composite it using DaVinci. Cool. I don't know what composite it means, but it sounds like fun. There is so much artwork that's going to have to get done. I'm considering maybe using 3D models because they require less static art.
I'm sure you have questions, but let
And I think that'll be easier for me because the animation stuff is just moving things around.
good. No.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Hetera's blessing. Prayers be with you.
Right.
Let's look at my stash. Let's see what I got here. What we got going on? We got ladles. We got... Let's see, 22, 36, 63. Oh, yeah, let's just rock that right there. I bet you that pretty much puts me over the edge. Basically, you render different things as separate layers because some, let's say, objects or particles with heavy data, I will render them as separate layers and then put them back together again. So it's less time and resources used. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's something I didn't even know.
Everything okay? What that and what that we there? Are you stay safe, stay alive, and bring Balthus back.
That's cool, though. Need to get some particle effects going on. Oh, I know why I'm bleeding. Gonna have to take this off. Oh, yeah? What is it changing? It's making render times and stuff so much faster. Yeah, render time's so much faster since you don't have to compute every object in lighting cache. Spread them out. Only thing is you have to render multiple times. Yeah, but if it's less load on your machine and you know, you can kind of look at how each individual piece is going to look independently. I mean, I definitely can see the value in being able to do that. It also means that you can use different things, maybe for multiple things. So if you have a particle effect or something like that that you already have rendered, and you end up using the same particle effect in something else, then you're not re-rendering that particle effect. For example, if you had a particle effect that you were going to use for an attack or something like that, but you were going to need to re-render just the core attack part of it for every different weapon type or something like that, but the particle effect on the character is maybe going to stay the same, then you could just render the particle effect that one time and then, you know, render everything else for each different weapon or whatever it was you needed to do. So I can definitely see some value in there. Particles and objects like glass and things, there's a lot of reflection. Good point. Good point. Hey, who just got disintegrate? We just got disintegrate. Yeah, it's time to disintegrate some biatches. Let's go in here. Let's hit this right here, and let's see. We're just gonna come down here. We're just gonna chizzity shack things. We want to get this lightning blast cast chance as fast as possible, I think. Zoom. 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 Yeah, this is fun. Pew. PoE 2 have a lot of weapons they're still working on. They also have a primal category, which has got nothing in it yet. Yeah, I honestly thought PoE 2 was a lot further along than it actually is. I'm a little disappointed. I thought by the end of the year we might be getting the full release, but I think it's not going to be until sometime next year, probably. Which makes me wonder why they're doing leagues and stuff like that right now. I don't know. It's all very weird. Get zapped. La 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 la. Zap. That was fun. Welcome to Duloc, it's a perfect town.
He's back.
Here we have some rules, let us lay them down.
Lena, I'm sorry to you too. This is what's best for us all.
Teleporto.
With the Epoch's power, I'll finally be able to...
Entering the crumbling ruins. Ruined.
I cannot do that. The shard seems to have taken
Explore your surroundings.
my surroundings appear familiar.
I am really enjoying Disintegrate. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I like the way it looks. I wonder if I'm going to like how it looks when I take out the fire, though. I kind of like the lightning fire mix. I might end up disliking switching it over to just one type. Should only take one more one more strong attack before the boss is dead. You get to pick a new item.
I cannot do that.
At least I think. You know, I don't think I've ever come down this little area right here. Okay, what are we looking at? When does the boss heal? When you say certain words? Or if you kill him, he respawns. Pretty much right away. It takes like 5 minutes for the vote for the item that you want to happen. And then whatever item gets voted on gets added, and then then the boss respawns. I kind of feel like a Ghostbuster. 1, 2, 3, roast him. This is definitely the ultimate Ghostbusters build. Are you gonna play the new Borderlands? No, probably not. I like the Borderlands games. But I don't think I get enough value out of them for their cost. And there are some other games that I kind of really want to play. Like, I'm really excited for Warborn Above Ashes to come out on the 19th. So if that game is even half as good as I'm hoping it'll be, I'll be pretty occupied with that game for a while. Probablement.
Gods be with you. Stay safe.
I cannot do that.
Let's see, what do we got here? Mana Vitality, Fire Resistance, Intelligence. Give me that good intelligence. What is this thing? Mana, crit chance. I'm actually really excited for Warborn Above Ashes. I'm really interested in, a perpetual war type game. Gilgamesh, you big nerd. Oh, it's that game you told me about, right? Where you team up and fight or something? Or is that a different one? So it is very similar to the game that I was talking about, which was We Will Become Gods. Warborn Above Ashes, I think, is going to be very much kind of the same thing as We Will Be Gods, with a slightly different twist. I actually think We Will Be Gods will probably be better, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Whoa. Why you just jump at me like that? But yeah, both of them are kind of the top-down isometric mobile war games. But they've got factions and all that other stuff, and those are the kinds of things that interest me. Is I really like the idea of having factions.
Another beast from the rift. No, a fellow hunter.
I think it's an interesting way to take PvP MMORPGs. So one of the things that is sort of complicated about MMORPG games that have a focus on PvP is the more vertical progression you have and the more permanent vertical progression you have, the more difficult it is for new players to join in. And the more difficult it is for casual players to join in, because those hardcore players and the players who have been playing for a long time just outscale you based on, time investment, gear investment, stuff like that. And so those games have a tendency to have a really hard time maintaining their player bases because new players don't ever stick around. Or at least not in very large numbers, because of how much time you have to invest being weaker than everybody else before you can finally catch up. And definitely casual players, who are a majority of the gaming player base for any game, have a really hard time playing those games. So I'll be interested to see how this sort of more casual, friendly, persistent war, there's really no level up elements. It doesn't seem like. It seems like a very horizontal progression as opposed to vertical progression. So I'll be interested to see how that works and how people sort of jump in and out and how people are able to distinguish themselves. So one of the things you're going to have to do is, because more casual players will be able to come in and out of the game, you're going to need a really good, concise, fast onboarding process. right? You have to be able to grab those new players or returning players who maybe don't remember everything. You need to be able to grab them again and be like, hey, here's how the fucking game works. Don't forget. And they need to quickly be able to get into it. What is horizontal progression and vertical progression? So horizontal progression is... What in the fuck? Horizontal progression is something like in a MOBA game where you can earn points to buy new champions that aren't necessarily more powerful, but instead fill different roles. Right? So if you started playing League of Legends, for example, you start out with just the free champions, and then you earn currencies and stuff to buy the other champions by playing the game. And so you broaden your champion base, but you're not actually increasing each individual champion's power. So your Ashe is always just as strong as everybody else's Ashe, but you might have access to both Ashe and Ezreal, so you have more options. That's horizontal progression. And then vertical progression is like this game, right? I'm passing levels, I'm getting stronger. So if somebody else was using the same skills as me, but they were, say, 5 levels lower than me, I would naturally be stronger than they are, right? My gear is vertical progression. And so in a lot of MMORPG games, you get a mix of those two things, right? You get, for example, Final Fantasy XIV as your vertical progression on a per class basis, but then you have horizontal progression in the fact that, you can learn every class, you can learn all of the different craftings and gatherings, you can do all of those different things. So that's where your horizontal comes in. And so in a game like Warborn Above Ashes, you're going to want to focus much more on horizontal progression than vertical progression. Because they're trying to allow more casual players to participate. Let's get affix shards. Yeah, I think I might have to change my plan here. I think this is too cool with both the fire and lightning coming out. I don't know if I want to change it to just lightning. I'm going to be really sad because it looks just like a freaking... Ghostbusters proton pack right now. And I really like that. I think that's hella dope. And I don't know if I'm willing to give that up. I don't know. Oh god, this is already doing 1,000 damage a second? Are you kidding me right now? Mages are so broken.
I cannot do that.
What brings you here? Terra's grace be with you.
Oh, it's because I have the freaking... Never mind. It's my item, not my skill.
I cannot do that.
Keep them off me. Only a little longer. Impressive. Go on. I'll be right behind you.
Got you punk ass. Ooh, increased lightning and elemental damage. Yes, please. So good.
What?
Go on then.
You. Now, the gods have long left this world, but their memory will give you comfort. Be safe, traveler.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
Yep, blowing up all the tables and chairs and shit is super fun with this skill.
I cannot do that.
Bad kitty. Bad kitty. That actually took way longer than I expected. Those things are freaking tanky, dude.
I cannot do that.
I'm gonna disintegrate the shiznit out of everything. This is so much fun. Oh no! The boss attacked.
I cannot do that.
Oh shit, that should be the end. It was. So now you can vote for the Helm of Defense, the Regeneration Ring, or the Nasty Knife. The Helm of Defense doesn't actually do shit right now. It just exists. But the Regeneration Ring and the Nasty Knife will both work. In order to vote, you just type exclamation point vote, and then put a space, and then the number. So for this one, Helm of Defense. Yeah, but you can get multiple copies of it. It's still going to give you the bonus. But yes, right now you have plus 10 attack damage from the Nasty Knife. They're not, currently, they're not one-time use items. The Regeneration Ring will give you regeneration. Or your, like your health regeneration. I think it's supposed to be 10. It could only be 5 though. Yeah, it just adds to your regeneration. You regenerate every minute, so whatever your regeneration value is, you get that many HP every minute. Something else I'll be wanting to do when the vote happens in the future will be to add some UI elements to the screen that will, you know, show like a little icon for the item that's being voted for. and then some sort of like little ticker so you can see how many people are voting for each item over the course of that 5 minutes. And then maybe also something that shows the current inventory so that people can make that decision based on, you know, what do we have right now? What could maybe be useful? Might even be something that I like stop whatever it is I'm doing. And kind of like focus in on and talk about or something. I don't know. Because it would end up taking up a pretty significant amount of the screen if I did that way. Who knows? Yep. And then the Thesourusaurus has reappeared. So he should be back to full health. And now you should be regenerating however many points every minute. And the Thesourusaurus is back with 200 HP. So another thing that's going to get added is eventually the game will keep track on a per run basis of how many bosses have been killed. So when a new boss spawns, each boss will have base stats, but then those base stats will get affected by how many bosses you've killed. So if it's the first boss, then it'll just have its base stats. And if it's the second boss, then, you know, it might get a multiplier to its base stats. I might also add some attacks and stuff like that that maybe only happen if it's, you know, the 5th boss or the 10th boss or something like that. I don't really know. But there's a lot of interesting things that can be done there. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is trying to make a full RPG out of the chat. Because it's, I mean, as soon as I get this made, right, this will be the only place you can play that game, is to come and watch my stream to play. And the more interesting it is, the more value that creates, you know? It's one thing to have, you know, a super trash game where, oh, you can only play this super trash game that nobody actually cares about if you watch Hermit's stream. But if it's an actually good game, then only being able to play the game by watching my stream is valuable. Let's see, ward retention, increased critical strike chance, freeze rate multiplier. Ward gained per 10 health. Health mana. Let's actually just go ahead and get some more intelligence here. That seems like a good play. Are you never going to step into Eve again? I don't know. I don't know. It seems unlikely.
Stay safe.
Eve was just another set of the exact same problems that I always have. I've kind of decided that if I want to enjoy gaming, I'm probably going to have to step away from MMORPGs and stuff for a little while until some new sort of innovative things start happening. Because at least if it's new and innovative, it'll be interesting for a little while, even if it doesn't hold my attention long term. But I can't keep playing the same types of games with the same problems because there's just nothing changing about them. And something I've been noticing recently that's actually been really depressing for me has been that it doesn't seem like the MMORPG community wants things to change. Every time I start talking about a new kind of crafting system, whenever I get into Discords or Reddits or anything like that, I get a lot of pushback about, crafting systems and MMORPGs are supposed to be a downtime activity. They're supposed to be easy and relaxing. You want to have something where you can gain value without having to put in too much effort. And the fact that crafting in general has sort of just been relegated to this sort of side activity, and that everybody seems to want it to stay that way, is really bothersome to me. I don't like it at all, but I get almost no positive responses when I talk about, a different kind of crafting system, a more active, gamified type of crafting system. It's almost always, why are you trying to change everything? Why can't we just keep things the way they are? If you don't like this game, go play something else. It really bothers me.
I cannot do that.
I mean, I'm into it. Let's play some Hello Kitty Island Adventure. I think that's a great plan.
I cannot do that.
I do both, Gravy. I go into usually the MMO RPG subreddit, or I'll go into like Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation has a lot of the things that I'm looking for in an MMORPG, and the scale of that game is really huge. So I harp on its crafting system pretty hard, specifically, and try and get people to, like want some sort of change, because their crafting system is very much just the same as every other MMO crafting system out there. But the scope of their game and the way they're trying to do specifically their economy with lots of different local economic hubs and stuff just lends itself really well to a more gamified crafting system that, has people who have legitimate skill at the gameplay loop moving about the world and having a pretty significant effect on, the cost of certain materials and the cost of certain items and the availability of certain items. And so as those people would move around the world or, come and go from the game in general, you would end up with really volatile and varied markets, which would help inhibit a lot of the inflation that's going to be caused by arbitrage, because the arbitrage would be more difficult to do because it would have so much more effect, or because skill would have so much more effect on the cost of things, and so the cost of things would be so much more volatile that more people would fail in their arbitrage attempts. And so, when you fail in arbitrage, when you buy something and then resell it and don't make a profit, it actually becomes a money sink. But when you have... Wow, I fucked up by getting this Nemesis dude out. But when you have just item economies that don't have gamified skill-based crafting systems and stuff like that, it's really easy to solve the economy. And so the cost of things gets really nailed down. And then arbitrage really just becomes about market manipulations and stuff like that. And so it's about razor-thin margins on extremely high quantities of items, instead of anything to do with the quality of the items or the craftsmanship or anything like that. And so because once you solve the equation, you can pretty much always make a little bit of profit on every interaction. And so you just keep buying tons and tons and tons of resources and items and stuff like that, and just flipping them over and over and over again, right? And that's all people do, is they just sit there and flip items and flip items and flip items. And it causes an insanely high rate of inflation in every MMO game. And the reason that's able to happen is because every MMO game only has an item economy. And if all you have is an item economy, then I can identify very quickly how much time it takes to gain an item. And then collectively, we understand how much time it takes to earn X amount of gold by, killing enemies or whatever it is you do to generate gold in the world. And then you figure out exactly how much time it takes to get an item. And then those values pretty much match up 1-to-1, right? So it doesn't really matter what activity you're doing in the world. It's always going to have ultimately the same value to you. So the economies just become really boring, and they just become about quantity, and that's not fun. Well, okay, so it's not fun. It's not the most fun it could be, right? It's entertaining to go run around in circles and go gather resources, and to know that gathering those resources are going to earn you X amount of currency. But if you had a more gamified crafting loop, then you wouldn't have to, have people going around gathering quite as many resources. So you could significantly improve the quality of gathering systems by making them more exploratory. As things stand right now, we have really static gathering location spawns. And the reason that that has to be the case is because the quantity of resources you need to get and the quantity of things you need to go out there and find is so high, necessarily because crafting doesn't take up any of your time. So this has to be a huge time sink. A big part of it just becomes learning the route, walking the route, gathering the items. But if you gamify crafting and it starts to absorb more player time, then you don't need to do the boring circular, gathering system. You can now put in a more exploratory gathering system where the resources that you're finding are more based on, things that have been happening in the world. And again, this suits Ashes of Creation really well because they already have and they're already implementing a system of world events where, corruption is going to trigger in the world and the corruption is going to take over parts of the world and it's going to change some of the gathering nodes. You're going to have seasons changing and that's going to change some of the availability of certain gathering nodes. So they're already kind of doing this, but they could do it on a much larger, much more dynamic scale if they didn't need to require people to gather huge quantities of items. And so you could just be going out and, specifically looking for certain resources and things like that because of certain world events that happened. There was a thunderstorm in this area, so we know that, there was some lightning, so you might be able to get some lightning ore because, there was just a lightning storm in this area. Or there was a fire in this area, so you might be able to get like some ember wood or something like that that's going to help in your craft in some certain way. There are minotaurs that have been spawned because of the dynamic events that are going on. And so maybe there's some sort of a reagent or something like that that you can only get from minotaurs. Something that's been blessed by one of their gods or something like that. So, a minotaur idol acts as a reagent for crafting an item, and you can only get certain stats from items by using these minotaur idols in your craft, right? Absorbing the blessing and then imbuing that blessing into whatever it is you're crafting or whatever it is. And so they've got this really cool dynamic event system that they're trying to incorporate that's going to affect questing. It's going to affect the way the world looks. It's going to affect some of the resources and stuff you're going to be able to gather. But we could go so much further with that. And then gathering starts becoming about exploration, right? It starts coming about looking for places that have specific events that have happened so that you can gather specific resources for the specific craft you're trying to do. And that type of gathering has much more value, even if you don't gamify the gathering itself, right? Even if there's no gameplay element to actually hitting the node, you gamify the experience of finding the item because you now have to be paying attention to, the world events and stuff like that. And so a person who understands more about what types of resources are going to appear based on certain world events, right? There's now this sort of meta knowledge game that's going on with gathering that just it's not as intricate in the current state of gathering. But, maybe that's too much to ask. Maybe that's too big of a change to go from a really, really basic system. But, if you consider, look at this itemization system. We have all of these stats, and there's tons of different stats. And these are all based on tags, right? And so this is a procedurally generated loot system. And everything about the items that are spawned is just based on this big pool of specific, affixes, right? This +6 mana, this +1 vitality, this +6 fire resist. And then based on tags, right? Based on where you are in the game, based on what level you're at, based on a bunch of different variables like that, it procedurally generates these drops to be approximately your level and to have stats that are approximately valuable to you. And so the higher level that you get to, the better some of these affix stats and stuff are going to be. And it changes rarities based on how many affixes there are. Then you've got prefixes and suffixes, and this is bog standard for an ARPG. But this could be a really good resource system, not necessarily a procedurally generated loot system, where you could have a ton of really interesting affixes that could be placed on your ores and stuff like that. So think, you go and you mine an ore that was in a zone that recently had a fire. And so you go in and you mine a fire ore. And that fire ore is going to give you affixes based on either just some randomness or potentially based on some sort of ability that you have at some sort of gamified gathering system, right? A rhythm game or something like that. So the better you do at the rhythm game, the more and better the more and better affixes that you get on this fire ore that you've gathered. And so all of these affixes are going to be things that are going to change the way your craft lays out, right? Giving you greater chances to get fire-based affixes on the weapon that you're crafting, giving you better chances to get just straight attack power bonuses, giving you better chances to get, fire resistances on armor, and just changing the way that layout of that Slay the Spire type crafting system is going to look when you're actually going through and making the item. And so now your resources aren't about having, 10 iron ore, right? You're a hero. You don't gather iron ore. That's stupid. But instead, you're out there gathering fire ore and stuff like that. And so now instead you only need, 2 or 3 ores, or, 1 ore, 1 wood, and some sort of leather or fabric or something like that to make a weapon. And those ores are going to have... I don't think it's your internet. I think it's mine. I just got... some hiccups. Yeah, I just had a little bit of a problem with my upload. It went a little wonky on me. Let me see if I'm having an issue. If I go turn on my stream and look at it. My internet just hates me. Actually, I don't think it's my internet. I think it's my computer. I need to replace it. That doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's in the cards anytime soon. Yeah, I had a pretty brief drop in my... Yeah, it seems fine. I had a brief drop in my bitrate. And then my game told me that it was having trouble. I just realized I actually only have about 3 or 4 months left. If I don't replace this computer by the end of this year, then I'm going to only be able to stream 100 hours a week. Or 100 hours a month, not 100 hours a week.
I cannot do that.
Which is going to be awful.
I can. It pains me to see an elder twisted like this. What a waste. What is this place? Astounding.
You seem a little disoriented. He might be kind enough to show you how to tap into your true potential.
My world would end. Absolutely. I don't do well when I don't get to play video games.
You've woken. Then close.
There's not really anything else I care to do.
Focus on the potential you wish to wield. As I guide the I see that we will meet again.
Let's see. Have I hit? I think I have hit. Cool. I can start doing this. Intelligence, increased spell critical strike chance per intelligence. Interesting. Max arcane momentum stacks. When you cast a spell, you gain a stack of arcane momentum, refreshing the duration of all existing stacks. Each stack of arcane momentum increases your cast speed, mana, and ward per second. Looks like that's where we're going. I mean, if I only get to stream 100 hours a month, I probably will stop streaming. And then I don't know what I'll do.
Why, Terra? Thank you. There is an old passage to the surface.
Because it wouldn't just mean that I could only stream 100 hours a month. Like, I couldn't play outside of streaming. I wouldn't be able to make videos when a game comes out that I want to make videos for. I mean, it would pretty much destroy my ability to create content. So we'll see. All I really need to do is be making enough money every month to finance a computer, which means about $50 to $60 a month. And I could get, something. But I think that's a pretty tall order to increase my popularity by that much in such a short period of time. I seriously doubt that I will make it, but we'll see. Then I'll have to learn to be able to go outside again. That'll be weird.
I cannot do that.
Dude, these early game Rift Beasts are chunky. Tanky ass motherfucker. Ooh, we got him. It's all okay.
I cannot do that.
Booyah, punk. Get dookied on.
I cannot do that.
You know what I just realized is I might have messed up here. Nope, never mind. We're good. Alright. Take away the fire tag. Let's see what happens. Now it's just this. Which is fine. but no more fire inside. Which is a little meh. It definitely looks much less like a proton pack, which is a little bit sad.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I fools. Fools. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
Kill them. Kill them all.
I cannot do that. I cannot.
Okay. What's a silver grail do? Mana. Mana and intelligence are definitely things I'm going to be needing to get. Let's take a look real quick. Ooh, I have 20 intelligence already. 4% ward retention, improves skills that rely. So attunement is the one that gives mana, doesn't it? That's too bad. That's too bad.
I cannot do that.
Ammo. Things are starting to take a while to kill. We need some DPS upgrades.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
Alright, disintegrate. What do we got? No channel cost. Static charges. Shock inflicted by disintegrate lasts longer. Range per point. Tears. Lightning damage per 8 max mana. We want to get these kind of later, I think. I think static charges give me additional. Give me additional damage. But but it's not really letting me look at what a static charge is. What the fuck is a static charge? Okay, now you're pissing me off, game. Do I not even get an indicator that tells me how many static charges I have? Are you freaking serious, dude?
I cannot do that. 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 Fools. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
Okay. Probably want to go kill this champion first. Just in case he decides to be a D-bag.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
don't think I'm gonna get this dude. I think I'm just gonna run away. Too much effort. All right. Give me just a second. I gotta use the restroom. I'll be right back. All right, we back. So I don't think this was the way I wanted to go.
Unsurprising.
We want to go down, not up.
What my apprentice would have made of this.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going back to Eve there, Louch. I mean, it just is very much the same problems that I have with pretty much every other PvP MMO. The lack of enforcement of their faction system and, the lack of any sort of gamified crafting or gathering or anything like that is just bad. And so it quickly becomes apparent that trying to get anything accomplished in those games is just not fun. Especially Eve was going to take a really long time to catch up in. That game is not new player friendly at all.
I cannot do that. cannot do that. I cannot do that.
I mean, it always is. It's always fun to explore the parts of the games that can be explored. And I don't just mean like going around and seeing what there is to see, but exploring in the sense that discovering how mechanics work and how game systems work and stuff like that is always really fun. Getting an idea of what the future of the game is going to look like for me as a player is always entertaining, and I think that's one of the reasons so many MMO games have such huge communities when they first launch, and why they kind of taper off is because that exploration is really fun, but it doesn't last very long. As soon as you understand the mechanics and stuff like that, there's not really a whole lot left to learn about them, unless you're trying to be really, really min-maxy about it. And most players aren't really, really min-maxy. And so I'm always going to try new games, because at the very least, that brief moment of learning and exploration is always a lot of fun. One of my favorite things about games, honestly. Really? Can y'all just fucking fuck off? I am still looking for my forever game, though. I do want to, as a gamer, my goal is to find a game that can keep my interest for an extremely long time while I play it just an absolutely ridiculous amount. I'm pretty much a one game at a time kind of a person. And so I would like that one game that I play to just be the same for a really extended period of time. Like years. I also think it would be better for the channel, if we could find a game that we could really, really get behind for a really long time. Then we could really work on developing just a community around that game, which would give us significantly more consistent viewership, and I think significantly higher viewership if we could, learn what was going on with the game and have, something good and useful to say about it. I was really hoping there are two games that are coming out that are, a ways off. We're talking maybe multiple years each. But Light No Fire and Ashes of Creation were two things that I was really hopeful about. I think Light No Fire is going to be really interesting in the world exploration part of the game, because there's just so much to that world because it's going to be so large that I think there's going to be a lot to explore from a places perspective. But depending on how varied those places might be, and how varied the stuff that you can get from those places are, I mean, it's all well and good to have lots of interesting locations, but if those interesting locations are all giving me the same stuff, then I'm not really going to get a ton of value out of those locations. So we'll see how they end up doing with their procedural generation, and we don't really know any information about their building system, their crafting system, their really anything system. So it'll be interesting to see. Increased elemental damage, increased cold damage, increased lightning resistance. I don't think that's actually better than what I'm wearing. Let's go kill this dude. And then Ashes of Creation. We've talked a lot about how I dislike PvP systems that don't have factions. Their node system is really interesting to me. The size and scale of their world is interesting to me. The fact that they intend to have no fast travel is super interesting to me. I think that's a great plan. But I don't know. We'll have to see. On the really, really short term, I'm pretty excited about Warborn Above Ashes, which is coming out on the 19th, so 2 weeks. So not next Friday, but the Friday after, we're definitely going to be playing that game, just to see what's going on. And then after that, I don't know how long it's going to take before it's released, but there's another game that's sort of along the same vein of Warborn Above Ashes, which is We Will Be Gods. So I'm a little bit interested in that as well. I don't know, Lounge, if you've ever played like Rise of Kingdoms, but it's going to be sort of like that, I think, but with more MOBA feel instead of with the weird armies thing that they've got going on. But just servers getting mashed together for short-term wars and stuff like that. I'm actually really excited about that concept. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Let's see, spell damage, mana cost, spell lightning damage. Ooh, this is actually pretty good for me. This might even be better than this thing. It is. Let's pump these bad boys up here. Lightning damage, lightning damage. Spell damage. Nice. One of the things I do think I need to start looking into is maybe avoiding more traditional MMOs. I just don't think I'm a traditional MMO kind of person. I think that traditional MMOs are sort of turning themselves into ARPGs. So instead of MMORPGs, we're getting MMOARPGs. And I think that's been happening for a while. And I don't think I like it. I want, so when I say non-traditional MMO, I still want large worlds, and I still want lots of people. What I don't want is I don't know. I don't even really know how to describe what I'm trying to look for. The thing that bothers me about modern MMOs is the ARPGification of it all. So the extremely fast linear progressions, the extremely goal-oriented focus, right? Like, so this is an ARPG. So I'm going through the storyline, and then I'm going to go get to the end game. And there's a lot of focus there to fight specific bosses, to do certain dungeons, to, complete content in a certain way. And so I like that about ARPGs, but I like that about ARPGs for a little while. And then I kind of need to move on and wait for, new content or whatever. And so that's fine to me with an ARPG. What I'm looking for with an MMO is, and this is something I just talked to somebody on Reddit about. And so the thing that I sort of realized earlier this morning about video games is we talk a lot about socializing in MMOs. And I think a lot of people, and myself included, have been misinterpreting the social aspect of MMOs as a communicative aspect, right? People always talk about nowadays how MMO players socialize differently, where you used to socialize in MMOs, through in-game chats and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff has moved to Discord, and so you're always talking to your community on Discord. And we've sort of always been talking about MMOs being social in that way, in that communicative, hanging out, talking, sort of meta-social way. But something I realized earlier this morning is that socializing while gaming and games with social elements are two very different things. So socializing while gaming is that, right? It's streaming, it's Discord, it's communicating while you're playing a game. But the social aspects of gaming are more about interdependence. They're more about the actions of other gamers impacting your gameplay. And I think that's why so many people flock sort of in short term to PvP MMOs, is because a PvP system is a social gaming system, in that when you're in a PvP enabled area, the actions or even inactions of every other player in that area impacts your gameplay, right? You're watching out for other players. Even if there's nobody else around you, you're being impacted by the social element of the game, by the fact that other people exist, because it's creating this tension for you. The same thing is true of in-game markets, right? They are a social aspect of gameplay because everybody else who's out there gathering, everybody else who's out there crafting, everybody who's selling the same items as you. All of those things are having an impact on your gameplay by having an impact on the prices and the availability of those different items. And so I think people have gotten too bogged down in the, I want to make friends, I want to talk to people part of socialization, and aren't paying enough attention to the how do the effects or how do the actions of every other player impact my experience in the game world part of social action. Because I don't need to talk to people to be having a social gameplay experience, right? I don't even have to know their names. I don't have to hear the sound of their voice. I don't have to type to them in chat. Their actions just need to be impacting my gameplay in some way. And so PvE systems don't do that at all, right? If I beat a dungeon, it has no effect, basically, on the other people in the game world. Yo, what's up, Twisty? If I'm out there grinding mobs, it might have a small effect on other people who are specifically in that same area grinding those mobs, but it doesn't really have a larger effect other than maybe a market effect based on those drops. And so I think that's why we're drawn to PvP games. What's happening? We're just playing some last Epoch. Having a good time making a new character. We've been making a lot of new characters. Yeah, I think it just comes down to different people wanting different things. It's sort of hard to have a game be the thing the tribe forms around because people play for aesthetics, etc. as well. I think I have to disagree with that, honestly. I think that's kind of the point of MMOs, is to be the thing that a lot of different people want to play, right? That's why I'm always harping on lots of different gameplay systems and wanting games with really varied gameplay skill sets, is because that's kind of what I think an MMO is, right? Is it brings people together who play different kinds of games to ultimately create this world where different people have different skill sets and are maybe doing different activities. Maybe there are people who craft but don't necessarily go dungeon raiding. There are people who gather but don't necessarily craft. There are people doing all these different things. And MMOs are getting more and more streamlined and more AARPG-ified, where everybody is doing all of the things instead of small groups of people doing specific things and then impacting the rest of the players based on those specific activities that they want to be doing. And so I think we've been shrinking the scope of MMO games in recent years instead of expanding it. And I want to see an expansion of that scope. But then they eventually go least common denominator like retail WoW, where nobody gets what they want anymore. Yeah, I think that's a big problem. And again, that's kind of the same thing that's happening, right? There's a shrinking scope. WoW itemization used to be a lot different. All kinds of... If you look at Final Fantasy XIV, I've never played WoW really, but I did play Final Fantasy XIV. And you ran into that problem. They slowly simplified the gameplay loop because, you want everybody to be able to do all the content. But in doing that, they've made the game less challenging and so less rewarding. And I don't know. +3 mana per point, increased mana regen. I'm probably going to need that. Increased spell damage and ward retention. Sure, let's do more mana. That sounds like fun. Sure, it shrinks through expansion in a way. They try to make it for everyone, and in the process, it loses its identity for those who did play it. I mean, okay, game. I think that has a lot to do with that same trying to get everybody to do everything thing. Adding stuff to your game shouldn't necessarily mean that everybody needs to be doing it. You know, if you play WoW, and you play WoW specifically to Mythic Plus raid, adding things outside of Mythic Plus raiding shouldn't get in the way of those people who want to Mythic Plus raid. But modern MMOs are created so that people are sort of expected to do everything for themselves in one way or another. And so when you add those other systems, you do end up taking away from that Mythic Plus rating because you're trying to make it so that everybody else needs to do all of those things. And that's not a good idea. You want people who Mythic Plus raid to rely on other people in the game to do the other things. And then you want the people who do the other things to rely on the people who are Mythic Plus rating. But when you... gamers tend to be optimizers. They feel like they have to do anything rewarding because it's there, where in reality they don't have to. Well, so... the reason that happens is because everything is solved in the same way. What I mean by that is everything is solved with combat, right? In this ARPG, if I want to go craft an item, I go to a dungeon and I do a dungeon run, but it's the same as when I'm out farming for materials, right? I'm always just playing my character the way the character gets played. And so obviously your optimum path for any activity that requires that single skill set is to do it yourself. Because if you pay somebody else to do it, that person wants to make a profit. And so they will be charging more for whatever it is than the value it's worth. And so because you're in direct competition with each other using the exact same player skill set, if I do this one thing that I like, I'm going to have to do it for longer to get the thing that I need because I'm buying it from another player who is doing the thing, right? And we're ultimately going to take the same amount of time and the same amount of skill to accomplish the task. And so there's no labor market, right? And so in a normal trade system, right, in the real world, say I was a really good hunter and you were a really good farmer, and in an hour I could go hunt all the huntable foods and resources that I needed for a day, but it would take me 2 hours to farm all the farmable resources and stuff I need, right? Because those are two very different skill sets. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade my hour of hunting for your hour of farming, and you're going to trade an hour of farming for my hour of hunting, and then I'm going to go do an hour of hunting for myself. So I'm going to do 2 hours of hunting, but I'm going to get what ultimately would have cost me 3 hours. And you're going to do 2 hours of farming, but you're going to get what ultimately would have cost you 3 hours, because I would have had 1 hour of hunting and 2 hours of farming, and you would have had 1 hour of farming and 2 hours of hunting. So when you have disparate skill sets like that, then players can start to trade each other at a profit without getting in the way of a person's ability to optimize their own path. And so now I don't have the need to do everything, because I can do the thing that I'm good at or that I enjoy the most at a profit, even when I'm only selling at a 1-to-1. But there are no labor markets in video games because all the skill sets are the same, right? If you gather, if you craft, if you, play dungeons, if you PvP, if you whatever, you're using the same set of player skills because the gameplay loop is the same for all of those things.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
I also think it would be extremely difficult to get people behind a game where the object of the development was to make a game where they wouldn't be able to or wouldn't maybe even want to play all the parts of the game. And in order to make that game something that people would want to play, the repeatability of every gameplay loop has to be extremely good. Right, crafting has to stand on its own. If you're going to create a game like that where not everybody's going to be doing their own crafting, or crafting isn't going to even maybe necessarily be extremely common, and maybe only 15% of the player base is going to do it, then it has to be something that those people enjoy a lot. But on top of that, your players who want to raid and do stuff like that, they have to have a reason to want to keep going into the same dungeons over and over again. And those dungeons have to be entertaining enough that they enjoy going into them over and over again. And I think that would be extremely difficult. And basically you'd be making multiple games, right? And you'd have to be making multiple really, really good games. But I think that's why friction between players is fairly important, because friction between players adds a level of interest to otherwise static systems. So I think you have to have some sort of conflict between different player groups in almost any situation where you want replayability nowadays. I mean, for example, look at League of Legends, right? League of Legends is honestly a fairly simple game concept, right? It's 5 people running it down 3 lanes. It's always the same, right? There aren't different maps. There aren't, any of that stuff. It's always the same. But because you have other players, because you have friction with other players, because you have the unpredictability of other players, it's been one of the most popular games in the world for a decade. It's why first-person shooters are so popular. It's why any of those small-scale PvP focused games are popular. Increased lightning, increased fire, chance to ignite. Maybe this wand will increase my damage, but I don't think so. 2289, 2186. But I think you can also look at it sort of like the Riot Games ecosystem. So if there was some sort of interconnectivity between, Riot's got the card game, the League of Legends card game, TFT, and League of Legends itself. So if there was some interconnectivity between those 3 different games, those 3 games all sort of stand on their own as enjoyable activities. And so you would have players who were maybe only doing one of those activities, but then impacting the other 2 activities. And so as long as you could create a game that was good enough for that to occur, as long as your different game sort of modes allowed that to play out. Or maybe my imagination is too big. Maybe that's too much.
I cannot do that.
I'm starting to feel like most people think it's too much. Build castles in the air, your world need not be lost. That's where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. It is taking me a really long time to get through the story on this particular character. It is not killing things very quickly. Or maybe I'm stopping and killing every single enemy a little too much. Yeah, I am level 23 in a level 20 area. The problem might be that I'm killing too many enemies. That's fine. Oh shit, a loot lizard. Loot freaking lizards. +2 to all minion skills. Whoa, the stats on your gloves apply to your forged weapon at 65% effectiveness, could be up to 100. Yo, that's a good item for my Forge Master. I didn't even know that ring existed. That's crazy dope. You can get a lot of attack speed. I think a lot of chance to ignite. A bunch of stuff like that. On gloves. I need a way to widen my spell here. Doesn't quite do enough damage to enough different targets. Ooh, a unique. I've actually gotten a shit ton of uniques on this character so far. Wow, another Grimoire of Necrotic Elixirs. Isn't that about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop? Thank you, Vigigame. Increase lightning damage. Yes, please. I need to go check and see if I can get my invoker set. Pretty sure I have the complete set, so if I can wear it. That would be dope.
So many years spent researching and theorizing what may lie within these walls, and all I find is ruin.
This place has seen such sorrow.
I cannot do that.
Let's actually go back real quick to the town, check my stash. I want to see if I have this invoker set. Because if I do... Can't quite wear it yet. Okay, so level 35. $75, $55. That's not really doing me a ton of good because I don't do fire damage right now, but that's fine. And then where is the Ami? I think this is, yeah, the Ami. I can already wear this. Freeze rate multiplier, snap freeze, critical strike multiplier against frozen enemies. Okay. So these are all just different element things. That's too bad. I don't actually think the invoker set is going to do that much for me. Might not even be worth wearing.
Have you come to make
You all dead.
I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that.
Not really all that great, but that's fine. It'll be fun anyway. Now we go over here.
Greetings.
From that.
Do not dwell on regrets.
Gain another point there. Teleport all the way back out here. Go kill this boss dude. don't think this spark nova is actually going off. That's fairly upsetting.
I cannot.
Good God, motherfucker. Get got. Get it, got it good.
I believe send the seek out the outcast queen, leader of the living rebels, and show her the epoch. The rest will be up to you.
Yes? Stay safe, I see.
All right. What do we have in our stash? Well, that's better than the one I'm using, so might as well, I guess. Probably be using this. Okay. It's about lunchtime. I'm pretty hungry. I think we're probably going to go ahead and call the stream there. So thanks everybody for coming out. Really good conversation today. I really enjoyed talking about video games and just different systems and stuff. Ways systems could be changed. I spend a lot of my free time just thinking about that shit. So I always enjoy talking about it. But yeah, hope everybody has a great rest of their day. I'll see you all in the next one tomorrow. I doubt that I will get enough progress completed on the chat game to actually get the port over to Godot done. In fact, that's probably going to take a while. But I'm going to keep working on that, and eventually we'll get it all ported over to Godot. And then we'll really get cranking. So yeah, I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you